Subscribe to my YouTube channel for deeply emotional, romantic, and mature stories that echo through your heart. Don't forget to like, share, and comment to support meaningful storytelling. The rain had been falling for 3 hours straight, turning the parking lot into a maze of puddles that reflected the office building's fluorescent lights. Emma stood at the lobby's glass doors, watching the storm with a mixture of resignation and dread. Her umbrella had broken that morning, and her car was in the shop for the 3rd time this month. She was trapped. Rough day to be without wheels. Came a voice behind her. Emma turned to find Daniel Martinez, the company's new creative director, standing with his jacket draped over his arm and car keys jingling in his hand. She'd noticed him. Of course, everyone had. He'd joined the marketing firm 6 weeks ago, bringing with him a reputation for brilliant campaigns and an air of quiet confidence that seemed to follow him through the halls like cologne. "That's one way to put it," Emma replied, tucking a strand of her auburn hair behind her ear. "I'm starting to think the universe has something against me. And transportation." Daniel's smile was warm, genuine. "I'm heading north on Maple Street. I could drop you off somewhere if you'd like." The offer hung in the air between them like a bridge Emma wasn't sure she should cross. She'd been alone for 8 months now, ever since her engagement to Robert had crumbled in a spectacular display of harsh words and thrown dishes. The last thing she needed was to complicate her carefully rebuilt life with feelings she couldn't afford to have. But the rain was getting heavier, and Daniel's dark eyes held something that made her chest tighten in a way she'd forgotten was possible. "I live on Riverside Drive," she said finally. "If it's not too much trouble." No trouble at all. The walk to his car was a careful dance of shared jacket coverage and nervous laughter. Daniel drove a charcoal grey sedan that smelled faintly of leather and something woodsy. His cologne, she realized. As he started the engine, soft jazz filled the space between them, and Emma found herself studying his profile in the dim light of the dashboard. He was different from Robert in every way that mattered. Where Robert had been loud and demanding, Daniel seemed to listen to the spaces between words. Where Robert had made her feel small, Daniel's presence somehow made her feel seen. "So, how are you settling in at the firm?" Emma asked, desperate to fill the silence that was becoming too comfortable. "It's been good," Daniel said, glancing at her before returning his attention to the road. "Different from my last job, but good different. The team is ... interesting." "Interesting is a diplomatic way to put it," Emma laughed. "Let me guess you've met Margaret from accounting. The one who keeps her lunch in a mini fridge shaped like a cow." "That's the one. And she's actually one of the normal ones." Their laughter mingled in the small space, and Emma felt something inside her chest begin to unfurl. It had been so long since she'd felt this light, this easy with another person. The realization both thrilled and terrified her. "You know," Daniel said as they stopped at a red light, "I've been watching you in meetings. You have this way of cutting through all the noise and getting to the heart of things. It's impressive." Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. "You've been watching me?" The light turned green, and Daniel accelerated smoothly. "I hope that doesn't sound creepy. I just ... I notice things. And you're hard not to notice." The comment settled between them like a confession, and Emma found herself stealing glances at his hands on the steering wheel, at the way his shirt pulled slightly across his shoulders when he turned to check his blind spot. "Turn left at the next intersection," she said softly. As they drove through the quiet residential streets, Emma found herself hoping the ride would last longer. She wasn't ready to return to her empty apartment, to the silence that had become her constant companion. With Daniel, the silence felt different, full of possibility rather than loneliness. "That's me," she said as they pulled up to a modest 2-story house with a small garden that had seen better days. The one with the overgrown roses, Daniel put the car in park but didn't move to unlock the doors. "Emma," he said, and something in his voice made her turn to face him fully. "I hope this doesn't cross any lines. But would you like to have dinner tomorrow night? Somewhere quiet where we can actually talk?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Emma's first instinct was to say no, to thank him for the ride and disappear into her house where it was safe. But safety had become a prison, and she was tired of being its only prisoner. "I'd like that," she heard herself say. Daniel's smile was radiant. "Really?" As Emma walked to her front door, she could feel Daniel watching her. She turned back once to wave, and he was still there, making sure she got inside safely. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes about the kind of man he might be. Inside her house, Emma leaned against the closed door and allowed herself a moment to breathe. Her reflection in the hallway mirror showed flushed cheeks and bright eyes, a woman who looked alive in a way she'd forgotten was possible. But as she made her way to the kitchen to make tea, doubt began to creep in. What was she doing? She'd sworn off relationships, sworn off the vulnerability that came with letting someone matter. Robert had taught her that love was a battlefield where only one person could win, and she'd spent 8 months learning to be content with solitude. Daniel felt different, though. The way he'd offered her his jacket without being asked, the way he'd listened when she spoke, instead of waiting for his turn to talk. These were the actions of a man who understood that caring for someone wasn't about conquest, but about connection. Emma's phone buzzed with a text message. Daniel's name appeared on the screen, and her heart did something complicated in her chest. "Thank you for trusting me with the ride tonight. I'm looking forward to tomorrow." "Sleep well, Emma." She stared at the message for a long moment before typing back, "Thank you for saving me from becoming a drowned rat. Tomorrow sounds perfect." As she prepared for bed, Emma caught herself humming something she hadn't done in months. The melody was from the jazz song that had been playing in Daniel's car, and it seemed to carry with it the promise of something new beginning. But promises, Emma knew, were dangerous things. They created expectations that reality rarely lived up to. Still, as she drifted off to sleep, she allowed herself to imagine what it might feel like to be cherished instead of tolerated, to be seen instead of overlooked. The next day at work passed in a blur of stolen glances and carefully casual conversations. Emma found herself looking forward to their evening with an intensity that both excited and unnerved her. She'd chosen a simple blue dress that brought out her eyes and spent far too long deciding on jewelry, finally settling on the pearl earrings her grandmother had given her, something that felt like armor and invitation all at once. Daniel had suggested a small Italian restaurant on the other side of town, the kind of place where conversations could unfold without interruption. As Emma arrived, she saw him standing by the hostess station, and her breath caught. He'd traded his usual work attire for dark jeans and a grey sweater that made his eyes look almost black. "You look beautiful," he said simply, and Emma felt the compliment settle into her bones. They were seated at a corner table with soft lighting and the gentle hum of other diners, conversations creating a cocoon of intimacy. Daniel ordered wine, a bottle of Chianti that he insisted on tasting first, not out of pretension, but out of genuine care for her experience. "So," Emma said once they'd ordered, "tell me something about yourself that I wouldn't learn from your resume." Daniel considered this, swirling his wine thoughtfully. "I write letters I never send," he said finally. "What kind of letters?" "All kinds. To old friends, to people who've hurt me, to myself 10 years ago. I write them when I need to work through something, and then I keep them in a box in my closet." Emma felt something shift in her chest. "That's beautiful, and slightly heartbreaking. What about you? What's your secret?" Emma hesitated. The truth was that she'd been afraid to trust anyone with her real thought since Robert had used her vulnerabilities against her, that something about Daniel's openness made her want to take the risk. I collect moments, she said. Not photographs or souvenirs, but ... moments. Like the way the light hits the office building at exactly 4:17 in the afternoon, or how the coffee shop owner always draws a little heart in the foam of my latte on Fridays. I write them down in a notebook so I don't forget that beautiful things still happen. Daniel leaned forward slightly. That's extraordinary. Most people are so busy living that they forget to notice they're alive. Their food arrived, but neither seemed particularly interested in eating. Instead, they talked about everything and nothing: childhood dreams, favorite books, the way certain songs could transport you to a different time and place. Emma found herself sharing stories she'd never told anyone, and Daniel listened with the kind of attention that made her feel like the most fascinating person in the world. I have a confession, Daniel said as they shared tiramisu for dessert. I've been hoping for an excuse to ask you out since my second week at the company. Really? What took you so long? I thought you were involved with someone. You have this way of keeping people at arm's length that suggested you were protecting something precious. Emma's spoon paused halfway to her mouth. I was protecting something precious. Myself. From what? The question was gentle, but Emma felt the weight of it. She could deflect, change the subject, maintain the walls she'd built so carefully. Or she could be brave. From getting hurt again, she said quietly. My last relationship ended badly. Really badly. I thought I knew what love was supposed to feel like, but I was wrong. It shouldn't feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells. Like you're not enough no matter what you do. Daniel's hand moved across the table to cover hers. I'm sorry someone made you feel that way. That's not love, that's control. The touch of his fingers against hers sent electricity up her arm. How do you know the difference? Love makes you feel bigger, not smaller. It makes you want to be the best version of yourself. Not because you're not good enough, but because someone sees your potential and believes in it. Emma felt tears threaten, but they were good tears, tears of recognition and hope. I want to believe that's true. It is true, and you deserve nothing less. As they left the restaurant, Daniel walked her to her car, but neither seemed ready for the evening to end. They stood in the parking lot, the night air cool against their skin, and Emma found herself studying his face in the lamplight. I had a wonderful time tonight, she said. So did I, Emma. I hope you know I'm not trying to rush anything. I just ... I want to get to know you. All of you. At whatever pace feels right. The patience in his voice, the genuine care, it was everything Emma had been afraid to hope for. Before she could lose her nerve, she stepped closer and kissed him softly. It was a kiss full of questions and promises, of fear and hope intertwined. When they broke apart, Daniel rested his forehead against hers. I've been wanting to do that all evening. Then why didn't you? Because I wanted our first kiss to be your choice, not something that just happened. Emma felt her heart crack open in the best possible way. Daniel? Yes? I'm scared. Of what? Of wanting this too much. Of trusting again and being wrong. Daniel's hands came up to frame her face. Gently, I'm scared too. But I think the best things in life are worth being scared for. As Emma drove home that night, she felt like she was floating. The radio played softly, and she found herself singing along to songs she'd ignored for months. The city lights blurred past her window, and for the first time in 8 months, the future felt like a gift rather than a threat. That fear, Emma knew, was a persistent creature. As she prepared for bed, the doubts began to creep back in. What if she was reading too much into his kindness? What if she was just a distraction? A rebound from some relationship he hadn't mentioned? What if she opened her heart only to have it broken again? Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. I can't stop thinking about tonight. About you. Sweet dreams, Emma. Emma stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. Tonight was perfect. Thank you for being patient with me. His response came immediately. I'd wait as long as you need. As Emma drifted off to sleep, she carried Daniel's words with her. In her dreams, she was dancing in a garden full of roses that bloomed in impossible colors, and someone was holding her hand, keeping her steady as she learned to trust the ground beneath her feet. The next few weeks passed in a blur of lunch, dates and long phone calls, of stolen moments in the office break room, and text messages that made Emma smile at inappropriate times during meetings. Daniel was everything Robert hadn't been: attentive without being possessive, romantic without being performative, strong without being controlling. He brought her coffee in the morning, but only after learning exactly how she liked it. He remembered the stories she told him about her childhood, her dreams, her fears. He made her laugh until her sides hurt, and he held her when she cried about her father's death the year before, something she'd never been able to discuss with. Robert, you're different, Emma told him one evening as they walked through the botanical gardens downtown. With you, I feel like I can be myself. You are yourself, Daniel replied, stopping to touch a particularly beautiful orchid. You're just allowing yourself to be seen. Emma watched him study the flower with the same attention he gave her when she spoke. How do you do that? Do what? Make everything feel safe. Make me feel brave. Daniel turned to face her, his expression serious. Because you are brave, Emma. You survived something that could have destroyed you, and you chose to keep your heart open anyway. That takes incredible courage. As they continued their walk, Emma found herself thinking about the woman she'd been before Robert, the woman who'd believed in fairy tales and happy endings. She'd thought that part of her was gone forever. But with Daniel, she could feel her hope returning like a plant growing towards sunlight. That night, as Daniel walked her to her door, Emma made a decision that would change everything. Would you like to come in for coffee? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel's eyes searched hers. Are you sure? I'm sure. Inside her house, Emma busied herself with making coffee while Daniel looked at the photographs on her mantel, pictures of her family, her college friends, the life she'd built for herself. When she handed him his mug, their fingers brushed, and Emma felt that familiar electric current. Emma, Daniel said softly, I need you to know something. Her heart began to race. What? I'm falling in love with you. I know it's probably too soon to say that, and I don't want to scare you away, but I can't pretend anymore. You've become the best part of my day, the person I think about when I wake up, and the last thing on my mind before I sleep. Emma set down her coffee cup with shaking hands. Daniel ... I know you're afraid. I know you've been hurt, but I need you to know that I'm not him. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm not going to hurt you. I want to love you the way you deserve to be loved, completely. Honestly, forever. Emma felt tears streaming down her face, but they weren't tears of fear. They were tears of recognition, of coming home, of finally understanding what love was supposed to feel like. I love you too, she whispered. I've been afraid to say it, afraid to feel it, but I do. I love you so much it terrifies me. Daniel set down his coffee and crossed the room to her, pulling her into his arms. Then let's be terrified together. When he kissed her this time, Emma felt something inside her finally, completely heal. This was what she'd been searching for. Without knowing it, not just passion or romance, but partnership, safety. Home. As they held each other in the soft light of her living room, Emma realized that sometimes the most beautiful journeys begin with the simplest gestures. A ride home in the rain. A hand extended in friendship. A heart brave enough to love again. "Thank you," she whispered against his chest. "For what?" "For offering me that ride. For seeing me. For being patient while I learned to see myself." Daniel's arms tightened around her. "Thank you for saying yes." Outside, it began to rain again. But this time Emma didn't mind. She was no longer afraid of storms, no longer worried about getting stranded. She'd found her shelter, her safety, her home in the most unexpected place, in the arms of a man who'd offered her nothing more than a ride and given her everything she'd never dared to hope for. As they swayed together in the gentle lamplight, Emma understood that love wasn't about finding someone to complete you. It was about finding someone who inspired you to complete yourself. And in Daniel's eyes, she saw not just love, but the reflection of the woman she was becoming. Brave, worthy, and finally, completely free. The rain continued to fall, but Emma was no longer afraid of getting wet. She'd learned that sometimes the most beautiful flowers bloom after the storm, and sometimes the most unexpected journeys lead to the most extraordinary destinations. In the end, it hadn't been about the ride at all. It had been about the courage to say yes to possibility, to trust in tomorrow, and to believe that after the darkest night, the sun always finds a way to rise.